I don't know because I need to take a look at it. I've looked at a couple of articles in it, but I've not looked at the entire thing as such. There isn't much to say about it. 1 year down the line, whatever we said 1 year before the line also works fairly well. So last November, if you remember fairly well, I don't know how many of you were there when we did it. And at that point of time itself, we had already said that this was a phenomenal exercise in vanity, taking us nowhere. And it's like, साल भर आपको लगा ये प्रूव करने के लिए कि इट्स एन एक्सरसाइज इन वैनिटी टेकिंग अस नोवेयर, बट दॅट्स फाईन. म्हणजे अशा गोष्टींना वेळ लागतो, याला आपण काही करू शकत नाही. सो we'll come back to that when I get the physical copy. As of now I don't have the physical copy. पण त्याच्यामुळे हा जो फ्रंटलाईन आहे needs to be disposed of. कारण the next one is already in the market. So this one is something that needs to be done away with, and that's exactly what I would do today. So I'll just touch upon the key things, as I said, as far as this topic itself is concerned. ये cow menace वाला जो पूरा business है, and what exactly is it that they're hinting at, what exactly is it that they're talking about. We'll just take a brief review and view of it, and with that this will come to a close. Okay. The next big thing is, I hope I have time for it. कि since we have said we have to leave by 2:30, I don't think we have much time for it, but I hope we have time so that we can address that third question which was left from last वाला जो पूरा 3 questions का बैच था. तो जो तीसरा वाला था about 1906 is the establishment of the Muslim League and 1925 is when the RSS was established. So can we say Hindu communalism is a reaction to Muslim communalism? Is this third question that I need to address. And I just hope I get time for it. If I get time, I'll definitely address it today itself. If I don't get time, this would be the first thing on the agenda next week when I come back. Is that all right? ठीक है. आता this one, I don't know where do I get started with it, because as far as the entire cow thing is concerned, there is a lot that we have talked about in the past, and I've time and again made the point about it कि एक nonsense business है, इसका कोई मायने नहीं है. It's like complete stupidity at its height. Okay. आणि there are 4 stories in it, 3 of which are personalized details in terms of farmers facing specific sorts of problems with cows which can't be sold off or with cows which cannot be slaughtered is what they're dealing with. Now, I don't want to go into all of that because that is something that I've already talked a number of times in the past, and it's quite boring to keep on saying that we live in a country of fools. So I don't want to go back to it. So let's do something else completely different, in the sense that ये प्रॉब्लम इन द फर्स्ट प्लेस अराइज कहाँ से हुआ और आज की तारीख में इसका पूरा सिग्निफिकेंस है तो क्या है. सो why exactly should one be thinking about this? Now, if you know this well, this started off since March 2015 when the Maharashtra government went in for its law, for an amendment to its law, wherein no longer could bulls and male calves be slaughtered, and even they were included within the remit of something which cannot be killed. So आपका जो महाराष्ट्र वाला जो लॉ था, वो सबसे पहला लॉ 76 में जब आया था, तो it detailed that cows can't be killed, that is female cattle can't be killed. Okay. 95 में when the BJP Shiv Sena government, when the BJP and the Shiv Sena formed the first government, at that point of time they legislated that even male cattle can't be killed. Okay. But it was sent to the president for presidential consideration, and it awaited presidential consideration for almost the next 20 years. So it attained presidential consent only in 2015 when the BJP and the Shiv Sena once again formed the government. You had this specific piece of legislation once more pushed for. The Union Agriculture Minister asked them just one simple, very important question कि जो cattle मारे नहीं जाएंगे, do you have space and resources to go about feeding them till a point when they naturally die? And once the Maharashtra government said yes to it, the president assented to it, with which started this whole business since March 2015. And then you had copycat legislations being passed by BJP governments across the country. So उसके बाद you had Haryana making a new law, you had Jharkhand making a new law, and it sort of caught up all over the place. And I don't know, among cattle, now all figures that I would be talking about come from the National Dairy Development Board का website. So all figures that I would keep on talking about when I'm talking about all of this come from them. So अगर कोई प्रॉब्लम है तो वो उनके साथ प्रॉब्लम है, ये मेरा वाला प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. I better make my side of the picture clear. Okay. आता what all is it that the National Dairy Development Board says? National Dairy Development Board union government का board है, specifically charged with this business of developing dairying in India on as much of professional and scientific lines as is possible. and its first most important signal act was what is called as Operation Flood, जो way back 1970s और 80s में आया था. Okay, तो NDDB तब से ये सारी हरकतें और ये सारा काम कर रहा है. अब NDDB का कहना ये है, the 2012 figures are the last figures which they have, because that is the last year in which this animal census was conducted. So the NDDB is mandated with conducting an animal census about livestock which are domesticated for economic purposes. So this is about cattle, this is about horses, sheep, yak, mithun और range of animals कि जिन animals को आप specifically domesticate करते हो किसी न किसी economic purpose के लिए. So you obtain hides from them, you obtain meat from them, you obtain milk for them, for all these purposes. So these figures are there on the NDDB website. They are not my figures. I am not gone about counting anything anywhere. So 2012 जो उनका आखिरी साल है जब उन्होंने ये सेंसस कंडक्ट किया है, उनका कहना ये है द टोटल नंबर ऑफ लाइफ स्टॉक इन द कंट्री जिसका एक प्रोमिनेंट फीचर ये है कि दिस लाइफ स्टॉक कैन बी यूज्ड फॉर व्हाट इज कॉल्ड एज डेयरिंग पर्पसेस इज 512 मिलियन. ओके, टू पुट इट इन सिंपल इंडियन टर्म्स 51 करोड़ के आसपास इसका फिगर है. ऑफ विच कैटल, that is cows, bulls, buffaloes, male as well as female, number 299 million. So this is like one of the largest animal populations across the world that you can think of. 51 करोड़ आपका टोटल कैटल वेल्थ, आपका टोटल एनिमल वेल्थ है जिस एनिमल्स को आप मिल्क करोगे, और उसमें से जो कैटल है दैट इज काउस प्लस बफेलोज को मिला के वो जो बनता है वो 299 मिलियन, दैट इज 29 करोड़ बनता है. This is the largest livestock among any sovereign country on the face of this earth. So if you look at the figures, comparative figures for a number of other countries, no country on the face of this earth has this big an amount of cattle wealth. So at 299 million, it's quite huge. Okay, might make you feel happy. Actually, it should make you feel a lot worried for a simple reason, because we are a very small country. So 299 million cattle, 512 million domesticated animals living in a country of 1.3 billion people. Okay, and a country which is not very big. It's technically speaking a very small country which occupies barely 2% of the landmass of this earth. So एक बहुत ही छोटे कंट्री में इन सब लोगों को इकट्ठा रहना है. ऊपर से आप ये कहो कि you are not going to kill cattle after their economic cycle is over and once they are no longer in a position to be milked. तो उसके बाद जो शुरू होता है वो एक अलग ही किस्म का प्रॉब्लम है. ओके, सो वील जस्ट कीप ऑन टॉकिंग अबाउट ईच वन ऑफ दीज थिंग्स इन देयर ऑर्डर. नाउ इंटरेस्टिंगली इनफ 299 million, as I said, is big, but 299 million technically is a big problem in the sense that on an average Indian cattle का जो lactation है, जो milk giving capacity है, जो उनका productivity in terms of milk है, वो बहुत low है. So per lactation, Indian cattle is capable of only 988 liters of milk, which is like a very small number, especially if you compare the global average, which is almost double this at 2082 or 2093 something liters. So if you are essentially talking and comparing Indian cattle with cattle outside India, तो दुनिया भर का cattle का capacity जो है वो almost double है. आपका कैटल का कैपेसिटी जो है वो ऑलमोस्ट हाफ ऑफ इट है एट समथिंग लाइक 980 ऑड लिटर्स पर लैक्टेशन. सो व्हाट वी मीन बाय इट इज द पॉइंट एट विच इट हैज काफ्ड, तब से लेके अगले काफिंग तक जब वो दूध देता रहेगा तब तक उसके दूध देने का जो कैपेसिटी है वो बस इतना ही है. जबकि इफ यू लुक एट एनिमल्स एंड यू एक्चुअली हैव फिगर्स विच आर मच मोर इंप्रेसिव एज फार एज अदर एनिमल्स आर कंसर्न्ड इन सो मेनी अदर कंट्रीज ऑफ द वर्ल्ड. So if you look at figures in New Zealand, if you look at figures in Netherlands and Denmark and countries like that, those animals तो पता नहीं कहाँ से लाते हैं, but they have something like 3000 liters of milk and 4000 liters of milk. It's like an unimaginable thing. Okay, तो उसके कंपैरिजन में ये जो है ये बहुत कम है. So 980 liters is quite a small thing, but 980 liters is all that we are managing. अच्छा, 980 liters का एक मेजर प्रॉब्लम ये है कि I don't know how many of you are aware of it or not. Cattle milk in India is heavily contaminated with a whole range of chemicals. In the sense that cattle mostly are feeding as of now on stuff which is really not altogether very natural and great. And B, they are time and again injected with a whole range of enzymes and hormones to see to it that they can lactate more. ऑफ कोर्स आई डोंट नो हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू हैव एनी आइडिया अबाउट लैक्टेशन मिल्किंग इंडिया में एग्जैक्टली चलता कैसे है. तो वो बच्चा पैदा होने के बाद यू नॉर्मली सेपरेट इट आउट फ्रॉम द मदर कैटल and then you keep on seeing to it कि it should be somewhere around the corner while she's being milked. तो वो उससे दूर नहीं होना चाहिए. पर फिर भी प्रॉब्लम ये है कि कैटल को अफोर्ड करना इज नॉट ऑल टुगेदर वेरी पॉसिबल एज फार एज इंडियन फार्मर्स आर कंसर्न. नाउ दिस वन, दैट्स अ फ्रंटलाइन वन, हैज दिस वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग आर्टिकल बाय सुधीर पनवर, who is a professor in something related to dairying. I'll just quote one of the figures which he has given in his article. As per the estimate of a Lucknow-based NGO, which runs this largest shelter for stray cows called as Kanha Upvan, the expenditure on feed for a single cow is rupees 1,950 per month. So अगर एक गाय को आपको एक महीने भर के लिए खिलाना है तो उसका कीमत जो है वो rupees 1,950 per month है. Okay. Whereas, according to the NSSO, this is 2014 का report, the monthly income of a farming family, average monthly income of an average farming family across India is rupees 6,426 per month. So, जब आपका income rupees 6,426 per month है और आपकी गाय rupees 1,950 का चारा खा रही है, और अगर वो ऐसी कंडीशन में है कि शी कांट बी एनी लॉन्गर मिल्क्ड बिकॉज हर लैक्टेशन साइकिल्स आर ओवर, शी इज नो लॉन्गर इन अ कैपेसिटी टू बी मिल्क, तो उस सिचुएशन में कम वॉट एवर द ग्रेट पीपल ऑफ दिस कंट्री थिंक, दिस इज अ बर्डन दैट अ फार्मर कैन नॉट बेयर. इसके ऊपर एक ही ऑप्शन जो है वो ये है कि आप उसको पैसे दे दो. जो नाटक दिल्ली में चल रहा है on account of the fact that farmers across the Indus belt, in the entire Indus basin, are burning their stubble off after the monsoon rise is over, which is creating that smog wala crisis as far as Delhi is concerned. And the sarar manne ki if you want us to stop doing this, you pay us money for it, which is not wrong, na. Howsoever great you might think you are as a country, as a civilization, as a people, as whatever, these are things which do need money. So either you make provision for this money or you live with the problem that we are living with. So on one hand, अगर आपकी गाय 1,950 का चारा खाएगी एक महीने का, पैसा कहां से आएगा? हाँ, खास करके जब आपका खुद का इनकम 6,426 है. एंड रिमेंबर वी आर टॉकिंग ऑफ एवरेज इनकम्स. Actually, farming communities in India make much less amount of money. We are talking of purely farm-based income. ये rupees 6,426 जो है, this need not raise any of those question marks कि rupees 6,426 में इंडिया के कौन से हिस्से में जिया जाता है. Okay, so this is what we are talking about, purely farm-based income. In addition to it, farming families are involved in a whole range of activities to supplement this income. पर वो बात उतना ही सही है कि लाइक ठीक है, हमारा अगर फार्मिंग इनकम 6,426 है, बट वी डू गेट अ लॉट ऑफ मनी फ्रॉम अ लॉट मेनी अदर सोर्सेज. बट व्हाई शुड वी फीड अ काउ विच इज नॉट गिविंग अस एनी मिल्क rupees 1,950 worth of fodder per month in the state and times in which we find ourselves? ठीक है, 6,426 हमारा मंथली इनकम नहीं है, वी आर अर्निंग मच मोर देन दैट, पर फिर भी एक ऐसी गाय को क्यों पैसा दिया जाए जो दूध ही नहीं दे रही है? And then if you make a law saying कि no, but you can't touch it, you can't kill it, you can't do anything with it, then the only thing is, as these articles detail, you leave them out. So आप उसको रास्ते पे छोड़ दो. अभी तक तो शुरू नहीं हुआ है, पर हो जाएगा. एटलीस्ट इन दिस विंटर तो डेफिनेटली हो जाएगा. नाउ यू हैव cars piling up on each other on these expressways in North India on account of poor visibility. I'm waiting for the times when cars are going to get piled up purely on account of the fact that there were cattle in the middle of the road. वो होने वाला है, डेफिनेटली होने वाला है. ओके, सो यू कैंट हेल्प इट, यू कैंट इम्पोज दिस ऑन अ फार्मर, दे कैंट बेयर दिस प्राइस. या तो आप पैसा दे दो, या अगर आपके पास पैसा नहीं है तो फिर आप ये जो पूरा प्रॉब्लम है इसको रिजॉल्व करो. द वन वे बाय विच दे यूज्ड टू डील विथ इट वाज अ वेरी सिंपल वे. यू सेल इट ऑफ, यू सिंपली सेल इट ऑफ एट द पॉइंट एट विच इट इज नो लॉन्गर केपेबल ऑफ गिविंग यू मिल्क, एंड लेट हुएवर इज डीलिंग विथ इट डील विथ इट. वो सेल ऑफ के बाद वाला प्रोपोजिशन जो है रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर हाइड्स एंड लेदर. वो सेल ऑफ के बाद वाला प्रोपोजिशन जो है रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर जेलेटिन विच इज यूज्ड इन अ होल रेंज ऑफ फार्मास्यूटिकल्स. वो सेल ऑफ के बाद वाला प्रपोजल जो है इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर बीफ एंड बीफ एक्सपोर्ट्स, but you are focusing on something which says that no, we don't want something to be done, so you bear the price of it. You just imagine this sort of situation कि जो मैंने आपसे कहा 29 crore cattle need to be taken care of. Okay, buffaloes are not a problem for a simple reason because buffaloes के मरने से किसी को कोई परेशानी नहीं होती है, किसी को कोई प्रॉब्लम शुरू नहीं होता है. तो buffaloes can be happily killed, and yet you have a problem now wherein this entire vigilantism problem is rising, that farmers are not interested in even ditching of buffaloes because you don't know at what point of time the beef of a buffalo would be construed as the beef of a cow. So nonsense log hone ki wajah se they don't understand the difference between beef coming from a buffalo and beef coming from a cow. मतलब हर बीफ बीफ दिखता है, आपको मालूम नहीं कि इन दोनों चीजों के बीच में अंतर क्या है. तो अगर मेरे पास वैसा वाला बीफ पाया गया, मुझे तो अपने हाथ पैर तोड़वाने का कोई शौक नहीं है. सो व्हाई शुड आई डील विद इट? सो एज से फॉर एग्जांपल द दलित्स इन गुजरात डिड इट आफ्टर द ऊना इंसिडेंट, कि आपकी गाय है, आपका बैल है, मरने के बाद आप देखो उसके साथ क्या करना है. यू डोंट कॉल अस फॉर इट एंड यू कैन एज वेल गो टू हेल विद इट. हाँ, सो यू डील विद इट. सो ये प्रॉब्लम इतनी आसानी से रिजॉल्व नहीं होने वाला है. तो एज आई सेड, आपका प्रोडक्टिविटी बहुत लो है. प्रॉब्लम गेट्स कॉम्प्लिकेटेड ऑन अकाउंट ऑफ द फैक्ट ideally in India, especially if you are traveling from outside India, you would be advised that you better keep away from cattle milk. So you go in for a whole range of other milks, but you better keep away from cattle milk for a simple reason, because it is highly adulterated with a whole range of chemicals which are used in a whole range of enzymes and hormones which are injected in the cows and the buffaloes with the idea that this would increase lactation. So milk, cattle milk in India, वो गाय से आए या वो बैल से, वो गाय से आए या भैंस से आए, सॉरी बैल से नहीं, भैंस से आए, is a problematic thing. You better stay away from it. You better go in for those plant-based milks that you get. So you get almond milk, you get soya milk, you get coconut milk, you get cashew milk. You base yourself on it, but you keep yourself away from all of this. Okay. Now this is a problem which nobody in India wants to talk about, or nobody in India wants to take care of. दिस इज अ रूटीन प्रैक्टिस. ये जो 299 मिलियन है, इसका सबसे बड़ा जो फीचर है वो ये है, यू डू नॉट हैव व्हाट इज कॉल्ड एज लार्ज स्केल ऑर्गेनाइज्ड डेयरिंग. व्हाट यू हैव आर डेयरी फार्म्स व्हिच आर वेरी स्मॉल एंड फ्रैगमेंटेड. सो मे बी 2 cows, 3 buffaloes or something like that per farm, and it's these which are milked, and then the milk is aggregated maybe at the village level, so it can be transported and supplied to a slightly higher level. So वो लेवल पे क्वालिटी कंट्रोल्स कंप्लीटली जीरो है. आई कांट गो आउट एंड चेक आउट एवरी सिंगल कैटल शेड इन द कंट्री टू फाइंड आउट कि एग्जैक्टली वो किस किस्म के हार्मोन्स और एंजाइम्स उनकी काउज और बफेलोज में इंजेक्ट कर रहे हैं. मोस्ट ऑफ दिस स्टफ इज वेरी इजिली अवेलेबल थ्रू आउट द कंट्री, स्पेशली इन कैटल मार्केट्स अक्रॉस द कंट्री. सो जहां पे जानवर बेचे जाते हैं या जहां पे दूध और दूध से जुड़ी हुई चीजें जो है उनको बेचा जाता है, वहां पे इट्स वेरी रूटीन टू कम अक्रॉस these small stores, shops and kiosks which will go about selling a whole range of these types of chemicals, enzymes, hormones, injections, a whole range of things. Most of them are spurious in a number of cases क्योंकि उनके मैन्युफैक्चरिंग का भी किसी किस्म का क्वालिटी कंट्रोल नहीं है. तो इतने सब के बाद भी अगर आपको दूध पीना है, बिलीविंग इन दिस, अच्छा, ऑन टॉप ऑफ एवरीथिंग, द ग्रेटेस्ट प्रॉब्लम इन साउथ एशिया इज practically 80% of South Asia, which is everyone, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, everyone added into it. So close to 80% of South Asians are genetically prone to something that is called as a lactose allergy. So we have a major problem with lactose. वो जो milk का glucose है, which needs to be absorbed in the body, South Asians are genetically prone to a problem in the case of which they cannot absorb milk in their blood. So most of us in South Asia have a genetic makeup which is very similar to this. One of the reasons why pre-modern South Asians used to go about raising cattle for purposes of not milking them, but for purposes of making hides and leathers out of them and possibly eating them. So हमारा पुराना tradition जो था, something which is done by a number of tribals again in India as of now. There are close to 200 tribals across the country who are the owners as far as these 512 million cattle are concerned. They form almost 6% of the Indian population, exclusively dealing in what is known as livestock farming. So 6% of India, that's 200 different tribal communities from the north to the south, deal with what is called as livestock farming, and they are spread all across the country. They deal with all these 512 million animals that we are talking about. A number of these communities, especially now in the far-flung areas in the Himalayas, both the Kashmir Himalayas as well as the northeastern Himalayas, are communities which do not raise cattle for purposes of milk. They raise, अभी वो दूध किसी और को बेच देते हैं, पर उनके लिए cattle जरूरी है क्योंकि इससे leather आता है और इससे meat आता है. So two very important things for which they go about raising cattle. Actually, the funniest part of the whole story is we are possibly the only country on the face of this world that goes about raising cattle exclusively for something known as milk. So we normally do not raise cattle with the intention कि इससे कोई और product आना है. हमारे लिए cattle raise करने का एक ही जरूरी मकसद जो है, that is we have got to raise what is called as milk out of all of this. Okay, and as of now in 2015-16 that I am talking to you, we are the world's largest producer of milk. So 2015-16, the last year for which NDDB has figures, India manufactured 155 million tons of milk. This is huge, especially if you take into consideration the figure in 1951, that's 4 years after independence, is 17 million tons, 17. So from 17 million tons in 1951 to 155 million tons in 2016, that's almost 70 years of independence. That's the sort of journey that we have made. Okay. 1951 में per gram per day availability of milk. I'm saying per gram per day availability does not mean per gram per day consumption of milk. So availability जो 1951 में था वो 130 grams था, और आज जाके 2015-16 में वो 337 grams हुआ है. Okay. So if anyone wants to tell you that nothing happened in this country in the last 70 years till 2014 did not dawn, well, you can throw a lot of figures at them, and these are one of them. So from 1951, when it was just 17 million tons to 155 million tons. But you please take this factor into consideration, 155 million tons from 512 million animals is exactly speaking not a good proposition. Certainly not a good proposition. When we have countries which have a much lesser livestock, and of course, the next big figure as far as milk production is concerned, worldwide milk production जो है वो 801 million tons है. So जब India manufacture कर रहा था 155 million tons, what the world was manufacturing was 801 million tons. So we are a major component as far as this entire thing is concerned. The only unfortunate part of the whole story is it's only 0.2% of 155 million tons which is exported. So ये जो 155 million tons का consumption है, ये जो 155 million tons का production है, इसमें से खाली 0.2% exports में जाता है. बाकी बचा हुआ जो 97.8% है is locally consumed in this country. Nothing of this goes out of the country. Okay, and nothing of this goes out of the country not for a reason because this doesn't have a demand outside the country. The only simple problem is quality controls outside India and South Asia are so stringent. आपके दूध को कोई मुंह नहीं लगाने वाला. आप इस बात को भूल जाओ कि your milk can be sold on the world's markets. This milk won't be touched even with a barge pole by anybody outside this country. उसका क्वालिटी का इतना मेजर प्रॉब्लम है. Whereas you already have milks from outside India which are available within India. So if you ever travel to any of these big malls across the country, you would definitely come across milk in Tetra packs, milks in pouches, milk powders and a whole range of milk products which are available from outside India within India. पर आप अगर reverse scenario देखने जाओगे 0.2%, I'm very interested in finding वो 0.2% जा किधर रहा है. वो exactly है कौन? But I think it's Nepal, Bhutan and something like that which is definitely going to ban. There's no doubt about it कि anything beyond that इसको मुंह लगाएगा. इसके बारे में कम से कम मुझे तो बहुत strong अंदेशा है. Okay, so if you have moved from 17 million tons to 155 million tons, there has been an exponential rise in the number of cattle. Okay, 1966 is the first year when you had this tamasha that we need a omnibus all India legislation which will ban the killing of cows. So पहली बार जब हुआ वो जो normally कहा जाता है, मतलब this is what Jairam Ramesh has said, you can't blame me for it. Now the first time India's parliament was attacked was by the sadhus in 1966 who घेराउड parliament when parliament wasn't even in session, demanding that the Indira Gandhi government legislate a omnibus all India legislation कि जिसमें the killing of cattle would be prohibited throughout the Union of India. And Mrs. Gandhi had newly become the Prime Minister of India. Her instinct, as the instinct of a number of people in the Westminster model of democracy, was let's establish a committee. Committee जो बोलेगी वो हम करेंगे. कमिटी 17 साल तक एग्जिस्टेंस में रही कि जिसके बाद उसको डिसबैंड कर दिया गया. कमिटी ने अपना रिपोर्ट कभी नहीं दिया. कमिटी ने मामला स्टडी किया, but the committee never delivered its report, and the committee had a number of eminent people in it, including the RSS chief at that time, MS Golwalkar, who was a part of the committee. So सब लोगों को कमिटी में फिट किया गया था ये कहते हुए कि आप लोग तय करो कि क्या किया जाए. अच्छा, the problem is a simple one because the sort of plan of government which we have inherited from the Act of 1935 strictly sees to it agriculture and animal husbandry are state subjects under the constitution. These are not issues on the union list. These are issues on what is known as a state list. इन लोगों का कहना ये है कि आपको उसको स्टेट लिस्ट से कम ये एनिमल हस्बेंड्री एंड किलिंग ऑफ काउस वाला मामला हैज टू बी मूव टू द यूनियन लिस्ट. ओके, बिकॉज दिस कांट बी डन ऑन अ स्टेट वाइज बेसिस इन द सिंपल सेंस दैट एज ऑफ नाउ व्हाइल आई एम टॉकिंग टू यू ऑफ द 29 states of India, except for 6 states, in the remaining 23 states, cows cannot be killed for any reason whatsoever. So in 23 states of the union, you cannot kill cows. It's only in 6 states, that includes Kerala, West Bengal and states in the northeast, Arunachal, Meghalaya, Nagaland, Mizoram and all of them, कि जिनकी केस को छोड़ के काउस दूसरी किसी भी कंडीशन में मारी नहीं जा सकती है. So the RSS problem since the 1960s has been this, that if you leave these gaps open, these gaps become the regions where the cows are pushed which are intended for slaughter. So अगर आपने ये कहा कि you are not going to let cows be slaughtered in certain states, but there are certain other states where cows can be slaughtered. Well, those states become the regions where cows intended for slaughter are transported, and possibly after a point of time they are slaughtered. So what you need is an omnibus all India legislation which will see to it that throughout the union this is prohibited. मतलब सिंपल प्रॉब्लम उसके बाद is 2000 रुपए कहां से आएंगे? आपने प्रोहिबिट कर दिया, फाइन, पर प्रोहिबिट करने के बाद 2000 रुपए कहां से आएंगे? बजट में आप सोचिए जो टोटल नंबर ऑफ कैटल है. इफ यू लुक एट फीमेल कैटल अकॉर्डिंग टू द 2012 सेंसस, व्हेन आई एम सेइंग फीमेल कैटल आई एसेंशियली मीन काउज, द टोटल नंबर इज क्लोज टू 70 मिलियन, जबकि द टोटल नंबर ऑफ फीमेल बफलोज इज एट समथिंग लाइक 60 मिलियन. ओके, सो अगर मैंने कहा कि ये 70 मिलियन काउज जो है टेक्निकली कैन नॉट बी किल्ड, प्रॉब्लम इज 70 मिलियन काउज, दैट इज 7 करोड़ गायों के लिए आपके पास महीने का 2000 रुपए चाहिए. यू मल्टीप्लाई इट, फाइंड आउट द मनी फॉर योरसेल्फ एंड फाइंड आउट एज टू व्हाट सॉर्ट ऑफ बजटरी प्रोविजंस कैन बी मेड फॉर इट. तो यूनियन गवर्नमेंट शुड गिव मनी टू द फार्मर्स टू सी टू इट दैट दीज काउज आर रिटेन टिल द एंड ऑफ देयर नेचुरल साइकिल, कि जो उसके लैक्टेशन साइकिल के बाद, जो लैक्टेशन साइकिल कंप्लीट होता है उसके बाद वो अप्रोक्सीमेटली 10 या 12 साल का है. तो आपको 10 या 12 साल के लिए हर महीने का 2000 इस हिसाब से इस पैसे का प्रबंध करना है. सो इट हैज स्टार्टेड ऑफ सिंस 1966 when they are intended, when they are strong with their strong intentions, they are seeing to it that to go about creating this sort of a law. So her instinct was you form a committee, let the committee take a call on this कि इसका exactly क्या किया जाए. कमिटी 17 साल के लिए did various types of hearings, never delivered a report, never. There was no report which was ever delivered कि exactly इसके बारे में क्या किया जाए. So it was like almost implicitly accepted that the states have a role to play in all of this and the states need to take a call on this. The states started playing their funny game by creating state-based legislations whereby you can go about stopping this. Of course, the states like Madhya Pradesh and Orissa brought in their anti-cow slaughter bills much before this committee was constituted. So way back in the 1950s itself, late 1950s, 57, 58 में ही Orissa becomes the first state of India to legislate it, and it is followed by Madhya Pradesh, which becomes the second state of India to legislate it. Okay, now funnily enough, most of the cases where they have legislated on this were cases when the Congress was already in power. So जहां पे स्टेट गवर्नमेंट्स ने इसको लेजिस्लेट किया है, 76 महाराष्ट्र का जो केस है, जब महाराष्ट्र गवर्नमेंट ने ये लॉ बनाया उस वक्त कांग्रेस गवर्नमेंट पावर में है. So you have a Congress government, you have a Congress chief minister, it's Congress chief ministers across the country who have played a major role in creating this legislation whereby the cow cannot be slaughtered. Okay, so much for that old idea of secularism, and so much for this lovely thing that I've always been saying, that India's original communal party is the Congress. तो एकदम सबसे पहला अगर किसी ने बनाया है ना ये लॉ, तो इन लोगों ने जाके बनाया. तो बहुत जरूरी है पूछना कि भाई आपके एग्जैक्टली प्रॉब्लम्स क्या थे कि जिसकी वजह से आपने ये लॉज बनाए. ओके, और तब से लेके अच्छा उन दिनों में प्रॉब्लम स्लाइटली अलग था, इन द सेंस दैट टिल यू डोंट कम टू द अर्ली 1970s, post this entire green revolution wala business of the mid 1960s, you actually needed cattle in a large number of cases for farming operations, especially plowing. Once you come to the early 1970s, post Bangladesh war wala jo situation hai कि जहां पे mechanization and industrialization in India would reach a level wherein tractors would become almost a common feature of Indian farming all over the place, tab tak there was a certain sort of a reason to believe that farming does need the help of animals as far as farming operations are concerned. But once the tractor took over in a big way, you no longer need animals for purposes of farming operations. कि जिसके बाद सारा problem complicate हो गया, especially as far as the male cattle are concerned. So till you don't come to the early 1970s, it was all right. You needed them for rural transportation, you needed them for farming operations, and maybe at some festival times you could play games with them. Post 1971, you had a major crisis कि ना तो आपको इनकी जरूरत था for what is called as rural transportation, ना ही आपको इनका जरूरत था for farming operations. The only thing that they were now good for is all those different types of races, the sort of sports that are played in Tamil Nadu, the sort of sports which are played in Maharashtra and Karnataka and so many other parts of the country. So male cattle after a point of time were of no use whatsoever. Female cattle continued to be in use purely for purposes of what is called as milking. Okay. Achha, the big story that has happened over the last 10 years is farmers across the country are availing of extension services by the veterinary departments of the different agricultural colleges, centers and departments across the country to see to it that cows would be artificially inseminated with semen which is capable of delivering a female calf and not a male one. So what you're doing is the exact opposite that they normally do in India as far as human babies are concerned. In most of the cases, as far as human babies are concerned, if this facility is available, they would love to see to it that male children are born. But in the case of cattle, what they're doing is they're seeing to it that the male child would be weeded off, the male calf would be weeded off at the stage of conception itself. So you artificially inseminate a cow or a female buffalo in a manner wherein what she would go about producing is a female calf and never a male calf. So पता नहीं आगे जाके all those beautiful games which are as of been now played by the men in India किस चीज के साथ खेले जाएंगे, until and unless you don't decide that you have got to train the cows for something like that in a certain Amir Khan way, पर जब तक वो नहीं होगा तब तक तो पता नहीं इसका exactly क्या किया जाएगा. आ रहा है प्रॉब्लम समझ में? तो ये एक चीज है. Second, 2017, especially the month of November, is significant for a simple reason because, just permit me a slightly longish reading and you would come to know as to what is it that I am hinting at. According to the Central Statistics Office, detailed crop-wise estimates of the value of output from agriculture and allied sectors, the country's farmers produced milk worth rupees 495,841 crores in 2014-15. For the first time, the value of milk produced exceeded the total value of food grains, that is cereals plus pulses, which stood at rupees 486,846 crores and was way above paddy at rupees 226,481 crores. According to the latest figures which were released this month, that is in November 2017, I'm talking on the month of November itself. It wasn't like this even 15 years ago. In 1999-2000, the value of milk production at rupees 88,092 crores was not even two-thirds of cereals at rupees 1,34,096 crores, although it was more than that of paddy and the price of wheat. So what is happening now, as the Central Statistics Office has said, in the month of November 2017, milk suddenly becomes by value one of the most important things that farmers in India are producing. So this is now almost 1/4 of the total agricultural GDP by value. So जो आप फार्मिंग का आपका GDP है उसमें जो आप प्रोड्यूस कर रहे हो, almost 1/4 of it is now coming from a single sector which is called as milk. Imagine the complication of the problem. Milk आ तो रहा है, वैल्यू जनरेट भी कर रहा है, सवाल है cattle which are no longer capable of being milked. What is it that you're going to go about doing with it? So if you are increasing, matlab if you look at this exponential rise in the amount of milk which is being generated, and there's a strong possibility by 2020 India would be generating quite a lot of milk as compared to this. The reason for this, if you compare it with the 1970s, is something that I have referred to once upon a time, but I will keep on referring it again and again because that's exactly what is happening. is India का food demand और India का food का जो overall preference है वो बदल रहा है. So आपका 70s और 80s का food बहुत strong था in what is known as carbohydrates, whereas your new century food that is now that we are talking about is very heavy on something that is called as proteins. So already Indians have sort of made a lifestyle choice, a lifestyle sort of a transition as far as food preferences are concerned, from a food which was very rich in carbohydrates to a food which is now very rich in proteins. And you obviously source proteins most of the time. The richest source of protein are animals. So be it eggs, be it milk, be it meat, be it chicken, be it whatever. So I mean the richest source, and पूरा जो chain है of getting proteins, उसमें you don't have a problem with anything. That chickens are killed, that sheep is killed, that fish are killed, that anything is killed. We just don't have a problem with anything. Our only permanent obsession is with something that is called as a cow. हाँ, मच्छी मारा जाता है, उनको उसका कुछ नहीं लगता है. मच्छी विष्णु का पहला अवतार है. एक्चुअली बहुत बड़ा प्रॉब्लम होना चाहिए. Gujarat is India's #1 state when it comes to production of fish. Though it hardly eats anything of what it produces, but given the fact that you have a large coastline, it's very easy to keep on exporting it and sending it all across the country for consumption. तो मच्छी टेक्निकली स्पीकिंग विष्णु का पहला अवतार है. आप उसको इतना रैम्पेंटली, रूटीनली और रेगुलरली मार रहे हो, बहुत बड़ा प्रॉब्लम होना चाहिए. आप उसके बारे में कुछ नहीं कर रहे हो. And all the other animals, if you look at the zoomorphic nature of India's divinities, are connected in some way or the other with so many other gods. पर एक ही रैम्पेंट प्रॉब्लम है कि बाकी इतने सारे एनिमल्स मारे जा रहे हैं, ना उसका कोई गम है, ना शिकवा है, ना गिला है, ना कुछ है. बस एक ही चीज का ऑब्सेशन है कि गाय मारी जा रही है. हम नहीं मारेंगे, दे दो 2000, महीने का 2000 भेज दो. नहीं मारेंगे, वो तो आपको करना है नहीं. अच्छा, प्रॉब्लम इतना भी आसान नहीं है. लेट्स बी वेरी क्लियर अबाउट दिस. द पनवर आर्टिकल इज एक्सट्रीमली इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर दैट, इन द सेंस दैट no wait, that is not Panwar, that actually is a Baba. Idhar ka Baba. This is a Baba. I don't know if you have seen the Frontline. He comes from Haryana. संत है, वो खुद को संत कहता है. इसका नाम है संत गोपाल दास. And as of now he is in some hospital in All India Institute of Medical Sciences because he is on a hunger strike. He weighs something like 43 kgs and his hunger strike का reason is हरियाणा गवर्नमेंट ने काउ स्लॉटर प्रोहिबिशन का लॉ तो बनाया है, पर जिस पैमाने पे ग्रेजिंग लैंड अवेलेबल होना चाहिए वो ग्रेजिंग लैंड काउज और ये बाकी तमाम कैटल के लिए नहीं है. तो ये जो गोचर जमीन है जो गवर्नमेंट ने मुहैया कराना है और जिसको गवर्नमेंट ने डेजिग्नेट करना है कि ये गोचर है और इसमें आप किसी भी तरह का दूसरा डेवलपमेंट नहीं कर सकते हो, ही वांट्स द हरियाणा गवर्नमेंट टू नोटिफाई दैट. And since the Haryana government refuses to notify it, Haryana government is, if you thought that Yogi Adityanath with his Ram, Lakshman and Sita descending down from a helicopter Diwali was too much a fancy thing for India, you don't know what the Haryana government is. A state which has zero, chief minister has zero control over law and order. The state keeps on erupting practically every 7 months into one major riot or the other. And he has all the time in the world to organize these big jamborees all over the world of World Gita Conference and God knows what all. And now you have man from the backyard saying कि notify करो. Notify कहाँ से करेगा? पूरा हरियाणा as of now is a part of the Delhi NCR region. उसको नोटिफाई करेगा ये कहते हुए कि ये 1000 एकड़ आर नाउ नोटिफाइड एज गोचर वेयर ओनली एनिमल्स कैन ग्रेज। हाँ, तो अगला गुड़गांव और डीएलएफ कहाँ बांधेंगे फिर? वो भी तो सवाल है ना। So if you keep on doing this sort of stupid thing कि no, let's notify this area as place where cows will graze, place where buffaloes will graze, so अगला 110 towers कहाँ से आएगा? वो नहीं किया जा सकता है। So can you imagine the sort of stupid situation in which we find ourselves? On one hand, they don't want animals. Madhya Pradesh has become the latest in all manner of stupidity. I don't know what sort of Diwali did Shivraj Chauhan have, कि जिसके बाद he suddenly started feeling that Madhya Pradesh's roads are great than the roads in the United States, and so on and so forth. But it has now become the first state of the Indian Union where if farmers are found in a situation where your cows are loitering on the streets, you would have to pay a fine for it. So अब आपकी गाय रास्ते पे घूम नहीं सकती है। अब पता नहीं, मतलब farmers have number of ways. Farmers have been beating the government in India for ages altogether. They have been around even before the state in India was formed. तो उनको बहुत अच्छी तरह से मालूम है आपको कैसे उल्लू बनाया जाता है। तो वो क्या करते हैं, आपने बोला ना नहीं करना है, वो ट्रक में भर देना है। और मध्य प्रदेश में तो काफी ऐसा जगह है कि जो वाइल्ड लाइफ रिजर्व्स है, सैंक्चुरीज है, उधर जाके छोड़ के आना है। अब मेरी गाय थोड़ी ना आपको बताएगी कि मेरा मालिक कौन है। The cow can't speak to you. So once it has been found at a sufficiently far off distance, how are you going to trace it कि इसका ओरिजिनल मालिक कौन है? फाइन किससे वसूल करोगे? वो तो देने से रही। Have fun. So if as a government you can come up with one round of stupidity, well, people have always found ways of beating that stupidity. But they have never been able to understand this. कि एक तो आपने पहले लॉ बनाया, कहा कि नहीं इसको आप मार नहीं सकते हो, ये इसको हम नहीं पाल सकते हैं, नहीं हमारे पास इतना पैसा, आप पैसा देने से रहे। हाँ अच्छा, मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम इन मोस्ट विलेजेस अक्रॉस द कंट्री यू हैव व्हाट इज कॉल्ड एज ग्रेजिंग लैंड्स. Most grazing lands are lands held in common. So these are the typical commons which are available across the country. Problem ये है, grazing lands on account of their old connection with traditional divinities and everything in the region are lands which are extremely lucrative from the perspective of all things which are called as real estate development. So real estate development के नजरिए से grazing land जितना अच्छा जमीन आपको और कहीं नहीं मिल सकता है, फॉर अ सिंपल रीजन, क्योंकि गिवन द फैक्ट दैट इट इज इन कॉमन, टेक्निकली फॉर द रियल एस्टेट डेवलपर इट बिलोंग्स टू नोबडी. अगर किसी का जमीन है तो आपको उसके साथ नेगोशिएट करना पड़ेगा, डील देना पड़ेगा, यू विल हैव टू गिव हिम कमीशन, यू विल हैव टू टॉक ऑफ मनी एंड एवरीथिंग. अगर आपने कहा ग्रेजिंग लैंड है, लैंड इन कॉमन है, तो टेक्निकली किसी का भी नहीं है ना. अगर टेक्निकली किसी का भी नहीं है, a whole range of problems that real estate developers have to deal with. The only reason why this problem has not peaked in contemporary India is because of the downturn in the real estate market since November 2016. First with demonetization and then with GST. तो वो अगर प्रॉब्लम नहीं ना हुआ होता, you would have seen इस प्रॉब्लम का क्राइसिस कितना भयानक होता. So just because the fact that there is a downturn in the real estate development market across the country, you as of now are not feeling this cow wala problem in a big way. But had that not been the case, you would have realized this problem in so big a way. And cows being what they are, you can't help them. If you keep on, वो simple जानवर है, you keep on shooing it, it will keep on moving away. वो आपके घर के सामने आके बैठ जाएगा. Left with no land, no grazing lands, no lands आसपास where it can move around, farmer doesn't want it, वो आपके घर के सामने आके बैठ जाएगा. Okay, for any farmer, as I've time and again said, when this Maharashtra case happened, if you buy a car, you drive it for 15 years, after a point of time which you decide to sell it off, the government has no reason to tell you as to you can't sell this off, you need to sell it off at a specific person, to a specific person, in a notified sort of a manner. ये ऐसा कुछ नहीं हो सकता है. आप OLX पे जाओ, बेच दो. If you do that with one capital asset which is called as a motor car, second cow is a second capital asset. The farmer has invested money in it when he has purchased it. उसका lactation का period cycle खत्म हो गया है. The farmer has a right to dispose it off. You can't stop the farmer from disposing it off. You can't say no, but as of now, my party and this government feels that since we have emotions attached with the cow, you can't sell the cow. आप कार के बारे में ऐसा कह रहे हो, काऊ के बारे में कैसे कह सकते हो? तो आपको बेचना पड़ेगा. तो इन बदमाश लोगों ने हरकत क्या किया है? They have seen to it that the market for selling and buying it would be destroyed. The farmer wants to sell it. The farmer even as of now is selling it off. Except that the farmer is not able to realize the due price out of it. कि अगर 15,000 में बेचा है, you should check out what happened in March 2015, which was a bad year in Maharashtra because that was a year of a drought in Maharashtra. So farmers had such a tough time, especially in the central districts of the Marathwada region of Maharashtra, कि एक तो drought वाला condition है. The Frontline government, with fancy ideas that it has about farming and agriculture in Maharashtra, was in par, and then it had created this second artificial problem. As if जो आसमान से गिर रहा है वो काफी नहीं है, ये गवर्नमेंट मेड मैंडेटेड प्रॉब्लम है कि जिसमें आपने ये कहा कि नहीं आप गाय बेच ही नहीं सकते हो. सॉरी, गाय नहीं, बुल बेच नहीं सकते हो. गाय बेचने का प्रॉब्लम तो कांग्रेस वालों ने पहले ही सॉल्व किया था. बुल नहीं बेच सकते हो. वो बुल का करेगा क्या? हाँ, आपने जब खरीदा था, यू परचेस्ड इट एट 30,000, 40,000, 50,000. Once the law was made, you found that people were not even ready to buy it at something like 3 and 5,000. And yet, given the fact that you had a drought on your hand, you had to sort of manage with whatever resources you had at your disposal. It was impossible to feed a bull. वो क्यों उसका पेट पालेगा? तो लोगों ने बेच दिया, ऐसे ही छोड़ दिया. Nobody wants to touch it. So essentially you are destroying a farmer's value. And then you go and tell the whole world, no, but we are committed to doubling their income by 2022. How? This is the way in which you are going to do it. ये Baba is there to tell you कि जमीन ही नहीं है. India's worst problem is if you continue with the present level of milk production, in 3 years possibly India will have to import fodder and grass. If you look at the rate of urbanization, if you look at the phenomena of climate change, if you look at the paucity of availability of fodder as far as animals are concerned, 3 साल में, flat 3 साल में, when you will top all charts in terms of production of milk, that would also be a period when you would also be possibly importing fodder. क्योंकि ना तो आपके पास जमीन है, अगर जमीन है तो ये climatic factors are playing a role in it. आपकी मुसीबत पहले से ही गहरी है. अच्छा, farmers love milk for a simple reason, because it's a year-long commodity. It's not like your खरीफ एंड रबी वाला बिजनेस कि ये खरीफ में किया, वो रबी में किया, खरीफ करो, रबी करो, साल भर आपको दूध मिलता है. They love to fall back on milk. Stupid thing is the government of India का animal husbandry department even till date considers dairying and animal rearing as subsidiary activities as far as farmers are concerned, whereas with the pattern of climate change in so many districts across the country, it is no longer subsidiary, it's almost a primary activity. जब आपका नॉर्मल मॉनसून साइकिल था तो उस वक्त ये सब्सिडरी था. आपका नॉर्मल मॉनसून साइकिल खराब हो चुका है, इट्स नो लॉन्गर वर्किंग. With the October rains, so I was almost in Pune bracing myself for 6 months of monsoon from June to December and 6 months of a summer starting from January to May. That is how it is normally working in so many parts of the country now. आपका नॉर्मल साइकिल खत्म हो गया है. उस सिचुएशन में सब्सिडरी एक्टिविटी नहीं है, प्राइमरी एक्टिविटी बन चुका है. इसके लिए डिमांड है, nobody is denying that. Even if it is lactose intolerant, ठूसा जाता है, पिया जाता है, क्योंकि वो lactose intolerance अपनी जगह पे है, मिल्क पीना स्टेटस सिंबल है. In communities across the country, as you are making the transition from the rural to the urban, from the lower middle class to the middle class, from a situation wherein at least under the force of things like Amir Khan and India's first full-time defense minister who is a woman. So we have a whole range of lifestyle changes which are happening around us, on account of which milk consumption is now being in a certain way projected as a certain sort of symbol of we having had a right. हम लोग आ चुके हैं. We have reached a certain level in our development of a certain sort of social stability and status. दूध पीना उसका लक्षण है. Except for a couple of people in this country, I don't know why people forget such very important things. Gems, such real gems. 2014, India's year of the revolution. So in other countries it happened 100 years ago. Our year of the revolution was 2014. So in our year of the revolution, our Lenin gave a brilliant interview to the Wall Street Journal of all things on earth. I think you can check it out. वो Wall Street Journal के वेबसाइट पे अभी भी अवेलेबल है. ये था शायद फरवरी या मार्च में, जब सवाल ये पूछा गया था कि for all the talk of the Gujarat model of development, there's a certain problem as far as Gujaratis are concerned when it comes to their human indices, human development indices. One of the worst human development indices in that year which was being talked about was this problem of anemia as far as Gujarati women and girls are concerned. And Lenin had answered it back by saying, मैं क्या करूं, मेरी स्टेट में लड़कियां और महिलाएं जो है वो ब्यूटी कॉन्शियस है, हेल्थ कॉन्शियस नहीं है. And that's the reason why they have anemia, that's the reason why they have such low development indices, that's the reason why हम कोशिश भी कर रहे तो भी वो दूध नहीं पीती है, because they are beauty conscious. आ रहा समझ में? anyway, but these are problems that we are living with as of now, serious, major and significant issues and crises, and no one knows as to how do you resolve them. The government of India has no plan for anything of this. I am very sorry to say, not a zero plan. मतलब एक भी चीज ऐसा नहीं है कि जिसकी तरफ आप देख के ऐसा कह सकते हो कि ये प्लान है. वो 500 करोड़ का मिशन गोकुल वाला आइडिया था, उसमें कुछ भी नहीं है. If you look at the number of cattle that need to be cared for, 500 crore is hardly anything. Hardly. And all that you need is wonderful months to talk of. I'll just leave this with that tantalizing sort of idea. You can deal with it as much as you want. Because since वो demonetization का बरसी हुआ है and we have been told that we have more taxpayers and more taxes which have been paid and everything, let's not forget this very importantly. What is very important in a capitalist economy is the freedom with which different economic agents can operate autonomously. If you keep on reigning in that freedom in some form or the other, ringing it by saying कि नहीं आप ये नहीं कर सकते हो, ये नहीं कर सकते हो, ये नहीं कर सकते हो, इससे कुछ नहीं होने वाला है. Okay, nations grow so that they can pay taxes. You don't tax so that a nation can grow. ये अजब स्टूपिड आइडिया जो नवंबर 2016 से हमको बोला गया है कि नहीं ये डिमोनेटाइजेशन एक हार्श डोज ऑफ मेडिसिन था, because what this will do is at the end of the day this will see to it that more taxes are paid, more taxes are paid. अरे आपका ग्रोथ थम गया है. Taxes are paid in a situation where the economy is growing. If your taxation plans are so brilliant of the demonetization variety कि the economy's growth itself is stalled, you forget growth. और अगर growth नहीं ना हुआ कोई टैक्स नहीं आता है. I think if I'm not wrong, it was Gadkari or Jaitley on television this week who were talking about how has America managed to become rich by increasing its infrastructure network. Arepan, you are forgetting this. This infrastructure network came out of the economic activities that Americans indulged in, not out of the taxes that the American government imposed on them. And as the American government's taxation policies changed in the 1980s, in the 1970s, and as they went for a difference, even the United States government is living with this problem that Americans prefer to stash cash abroad rather than get it back home. You have companies as big and as glorious as Apple which are involved in tax theft. Of course, they don't call it tax theft, they call it designing for taxes. This is not tax evasion, we are just designing. The line between evasion and designing is very thin. तो नहीं ना होता है। आप भी छोटा आदमी है, इसके पास कोई एसेट्स नहीं है। यू हैव गॉट टू लीव हिम विद द फ्रीडम टू डिसाइड व्हाट ही वांट्स टू डू। व्हाट यू डिड सिंस 2014 इज वो जो दूसरा मार्केट है ना, कि जहां पे वो अपने जानवरों को बेचता था, आपने उस मार्केट को डिस्ट्रॉय किया, और उसको डिस्ट्रॉय करने के लिए यू हैव यूज्ड द फुल फोर्स ऑफ स्टेट पावर एंड अथॉरिटी फॉर इट, फुल फोर्स। दिस फ्रॉम अ रेवोल्यूशन विच हैड प्रॉमिस्ड अस minimum government, maximum governance, that talks 70-year-old ideas from the United States of the government. Business is not to be in business, but the government's business is to create laws whereby you can destroy markets where cattle are transacted and nobody feels that there is anything wrong about it. And nobody knows if you do that, then how are you going to deal with the other problems? रास्ते पे घूम रही है. There's this lovely documentary on YouTube which you can take a look at, which is called as Plastic Cow. I don't know how many of you have seen it, but please take a look at it. It's a very short film, मुश्किल से 30-31 मिनट का होगा. Of course, it's made about an NGO which is run by this woman who has come from Australia, and she's running this NGO for cattle protection in Telangana. So they get animals from all across the place, especially abandoned animals and all of that, and they care for it. The most important thing that they are caring for are what are called as cows, and the film is titled as Plastic Cow for a simple reason, because most of the cows which are brought to this shelter are cows which have bloating stomachs on account of the fact that they have eaten a lot of plastic. So they need to be operated on, and the film actually has an operation that has been conducted in it when the animal is saved. And she goes about retrieving, if I am not wrong, something like 30 to 35 kgs of plastic out of the cow's stomach. तो इनकी माँ गांव भर घूम रही है, प्लास्टिक खा रही है, ये ढूंढते फिर रहे हैं किसी मुसलमान को कि जिसको वो मार सकते हैं अंडर द नेम कि आपने हमारी माँ को खाया है, या आपके फ्रिज में हमारी माँ का गोश्त है. And माँ घूम रही है प्लास्टिक खाते हुए सारी दुनिया में. And there's a funny condition in which this country is, and nobody realizes कि what sort of cruel irony is this. And then you want to go and tell the whole world, no, हमने हमारे आने के बाद, सब कुछ हमारे आने के बाद. बुरा न चल रहा था ना आपके आने तक. हम इतने घटिया चीजों के साथ तो डील नहीं करना पड़ रहा था. It's a normal thing. It's a very normal thing. And primary focus में ही problem है ना. These animals have been domesticated so that they can be of some sort of use as far as human existence is concerned. Man did not go about domesticating the cow with the intention that there is some divinity within it. The idea of divine was located with it for a simple reason, because you wanted to create as exclusive amount of wealth about it as is possible. ये आपका wealth है, पर wealth consumption के लिए होता है. Wealth बांध के उसको देखने के लिए नहीं होता है. And wealth का एक circularity है. It has to be invested so that it can grow. दूध दे रही है, taken care of. दूध नहीं दे रही है, would be sold off, money would be made, the next cow would be purchased. As simple as that. I don't know. There are no economic logics at work. There are no logics at work of any type. किसी भी किस्म का logic इसमें काम ही नहीं कर रहा है. And nobody knows as to how do you deal with this. So the situation, and worst problem is you are refusing to believe that the world changes. अभी भी आर्टिकल 48 को पॉइंट आउट कर रहे हैं. ये कहते हो कि देखो आर्टिकल 48 में क्या लिखा है. अरे भाई, आर्टिकल 48 में वो जो लफ्ज कहा था साइंटिफिक है, तो वो साइंटिफिक था इन द कॉन्टेक्स्ट ऑफ द 40s. साइंटिफिक अकॉर्डिंग टू व्हाट द 21st century is not the same as what it was in the 40s. 40s में you needed it because you were plowing your fields with it. In the 21st century, you are no longer plowing your fields with it. So what are you going to do with it? So throughout the country ये जो एक्सटेंशन सेंटर्स है, इसमें लोग अपनी गाय लेके आते हैं, ये कहते हुए कि इसको आर्टिफिशियली इंसेमिनेट करना है. but we want semen out of which what would be created would be a cow or a female buffalo. We don't want to raise male animals for absolutely nothing. Why should we bother heads with it? As I said, as I've time and again said this, flip side ye hai, the best milk would be got in a country where there's perfect freedom to obtain the best meat from the animal. In a situation wherein one market is closed and the second one is the only one operator, you want to try to maximize yourself with it. आपने कहा मीट का मार्केट बंद है, खाली मिल्क वाला मार्केट चालू है. Little wonder they are injecting it with all those chemical hormones and enzymes, because that's their way of maximizing benefits out of it. यहाँ 400 लीटर दे रही है ना, और 500 लीटर देना चाहिए. And this is happening because they are not able to realize value from that second counter. If you travel to any country on the face of this earth where they have both markets working at one in the same time, the Europeans, the Americans, the Japanese, the Chinese, for example, the best milk and the best meat. And nobody wants to deny this कि ये एक essentially आपका identity crisis है, identity problem है, for a simple reason because 80 million Indians eat beef. Okay, this is NSSO का 2013 या 14 वाला round. 80 million Indians consume beef. Of these 80 million Indians who are consuming beef, 63 million Indians are Muslims. So 17 million Indians जो beef consume करते हैं कि जो मुसलमान नहीं है, पर जो 63 million out of 80 million Indians जो beef consume कर रहे हैं वो मुसलमान है. Of course, this 63 million is barely 40% of the total population of Muslims in this country. So जो total मुसलमान इस देश में है उसमें से मुश्किल से 40% फिगर है आपका कि जो लोग बीफ खा रहे हैं. पर टेक्निकली गिवन द फैक्ट कि दैट बीफ कंजम्पशन का प्रोफाइल इज ऑफ दिस मैनर कि जिसमें 80 मिलियन में से 63 मिलियन आर मुस्लिम्स, practically every Muslim in India gets tagged with that idea that he is a beef eater. The Junaid Khan problem in Delhi. My fellow told him that you are a beef eater. And this whole idea is कि इसको रोकना है आपको. अरे पर वो भी 40% लोग ही कर रहे हैं. Even within that community that you want to target, it's only 40% of the people who are involved in that. But this is very important from the perspective of leathers, hides. There's a much larger number of people who are involved in the leather and the hide industry in this country. A number of leather clusters across India, after demonetization and GST and this nonsense, you are already importing hides from outside the country. Now, हमारा कहना है, no, we can think in terms of alternative leathers, ये वो. पता नहीं, we are possibly supposed to kill dragons somewhere. वो पता नहीं, seriously, मतलब every issue you deal with it and it sort of gives you that shivers and tremors कि we are living in a condition which is horrible, simply horrible. क्या किया जाए मुझे मालूम नहीं. And you can think about this as to what needs to be done about it. This is a severe, serious problem that we are living with. I'll just go through a couple of figures so that this becomes a very interesting thing before I stop this over here. So as I said, okay, 1 minute, that is also something interesting. किधर गया वो? Share of agriculture in the GDP for 2014-15 according to the NSSO is 17.4%. ये NDDP की वेबसाइट वाले फिगर्स है, ये मेरे फिगर्स नहीं है. लाइवस्टॉक सेक्टर का जो शेयर है ऑफ द जीडीपी इज 4.4%. A huge portion of which is milk, there's no doubt about it, but a not very insignificant portion of it is leather, gelatin, hides and all of that. So 4.4% of India's total GDP of 1.89 something जो है, that is $2 trillion, comes from what is known as the livestock sector. And there's a possibility कि ये बहुत ज्यादा हो सकता है had it not been for the stupid government restrictions on a number of things. सो ये पूरे जो लॉज जिस तरह से एनेक्ट किए गए हैं, ये लॉज अगर इस तरह से एनेक्ट नहीं किए गए होते तो ये 4.4% से काफी ज्यादा हो गया होता। पर ये आज की तारीख में 4.4% है। 17% आपका एग्रीकल्चर का जीडीपी है, और जिसमें से ये 4.4% जो है ये लाइफ स्टॉक वाला है। सो दिस इज वन थिंग दैट हैज टू बी टेकन केयर ऑफ। ओके, so that is something that I've already told you. You have 200 million people across the country who are in some way or the other dependent and are connected with this entire business. 80 million is also something that I've shared with you. The economy of Uttar Pradesh ka meat industry was 22,000 crore before Adityanath walked into the office. So वो जो total meat industry है, if you travel to places like कानपुर, मेरठ, लखनऊ एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट, जैसे पूना में शाम को लोग जाके क्या करते हैं, ठेलों पे कच्ची दाबेली खाते हैं, वड़ा पाव खाते हैं, भेलपुरी खाते हैं. सो वैसे इन कानपुर, मेरठ, लखनऊ एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट यू फ्लॉक अराउंड व्हाट आर नोन एज द कबाब कॉर्नर्स and you eat what is known as kebab pav. So if you do that, obviously आपका industry का turnover 22,000 crore is quite plausible. So there's no problem with it. 22,000 crore. You can very well imagine this. Okay. The NSSO conducted the All India Debt and Investment Survey in 2013 on 110,000 households in rural and urban areas. The collected data showed that cattle ownership is highest among the Sikh in India, with 40% of all Sikh households owning cattle. Of course, the Sikh are a very small community in India, so of a total of 1.3 billion people, they're barely 2.4 or 2.3% of the population. But 40% of Sikh across the country are people who own cattle. Of course, the Sikh community, called as the Namdharis and the Kukas, have the dubious honor of being responsible for cattle-related rioting in the 19th century. For the first cattle-related riots जो है कि जिसमें you go and clash with the Muslims is this Sikh sampradaya which is known as the Kuka Sikh. Okay, they started off in a part of the Punjab which is now in Pakistan. So वो तब से शुरू हुआ है, but they have the highest number of cattle ownership across the country. Hindu households own 32% of the cattle. Of course, this is a very wrong figure because this doesn't go about dividing it between the different castes. Because this would be very clear that upper caste Hindus do not own any cattle. Though when it comes to all manner of politicizing around cattle, they are right at the forefront. पर वो cattle ownership में zero है for a simple reason because they are more urban, more well established, more rich. So cattle ownership for the purposes of deriving an income out of it, no, the upper caste Hindus in India are not going to be interested in it. So ये काम जो है ना, ये lower caste Hindus का है, OBC Hindus का है, पर ये आप एक यूनिवर्सल कैटेगरी नाम का हिंदू जब क्रिएट करते हो ना तो बहुत प्रॉब्लम हो जाता है. तो ये ऐसा लगता है कि नहीं सब लोग कर रहे हैं, सब लोग नहीं कर रहे हैं. ओके, सो दैट्स वन थिंग दैट नीड्स टू बी टेकन केयर ऑफ. Muslim households, 18% of Muslim households in the country own cattle. And then that's the reason why you have all the Pehlu Khan wala incidences. The Pehlu Khan ka case was, he was transporting cattle for his own dairy. But the very fact that you are a beef eater who is transporting cattle, so you are possibly transporting it for the purposes of eating it. And that's the reason why you need to be killed. Okay, and then jaise, for some strange reason, I don't know, cattle ownership patterns differ across the country. In Kerala, only 7% of Hindus and 5% of Muslim households own cattle. Though Kerala possibly eats India's largest amount of beef. तो आप सोचो कि अगर हमारा कैटल ओनरशिप लो है पर हमारा बीफ कंजम्पशन सबसे ज्यादा है तो बीफ आ कहां से रहा है? Then in agrarian states like Uttar Pradesh, 52% of Hindu households, 21% of Muslim households own cattle. 57% of Muslim households in Jammu and Kashmir own cattle compared with 37% of Hindu households. So practically the point is, if you are coming from a poor and underdeveloped state, the possibility of owning cattle, irrespective of whether you are Hindus or Muslims, is much higher as compared to if you are coming from a well-developed Western Indian state like Kerala, and especially if you have money coming from the Gulf. तो फिर तो सवाल ही नहीं कि you go about doing things like owning cattle bittle. Like we'll own cattle, we'll take care of them and all that. पागल लोग हैं. Dubai. Okay. 299 million is the total number of cattle, as I've said. 166 million of these are from the indigenous breeds. सो वो 299 में 133 मिलियन जो है comes from what are called as these foreign bred cattle. So ये भी एक eye opener होना चाहिए कि how are exactly these patterns changing. One of the things that Gokul Mission was supposed to be doing is what is called as preserving and conserving what are known as indigenous breeds of cattle. And the indigenous breeds need to be taken care of for a simple reason, because they are more compatible with the agroclimatic conditions in South Asia. या आपके जो फॉरेन कैटल है इनका परमानेंट प्रॉब्लम ये है कि दे फाइंड इट डिफिकल्ट टू एडजस्ट टू द क्लाइमेटिक कंडीशंस इन साउथ एशिया, एंड दैट्स द रीजन व्हाई देयर परफॉर्मेंस इन टर्म्स ऑफ मिल्क प्रोडक्शन गेट्स एडवर्सली अफेक्टेड. सो आप उसको उठा के लेके आए हो फॉर अ सिंपल रीजन, क्योंकि स्विट्जरलैंड में बहुत ज्यादा दूध देती है. स्विट्जरलैंड में देती है, यहाँ पे नहीं देती है, क्योंकि यहाँ का एग्रोक्लाइमेटिक कंडीशन अलग है. So you'll have to either simulate those types of situations for it, which is not possible. So in that case, वो आपको ज़्यादा दूध देने वाली नहीं है. Okay, then that Kana case is what I have already told you, so that is done. Okay, so this gets taken care of. Is there anything else that I have missed out on? Okay, तो फॉर्डर वाला केस है, एक ही मिनट. By 2020-21, the demand for milk and milk products in India would be 210 million tons. So you're moving from 155 million tons as of now in barely 3 years to something like 200 million tons. Okay. By 2020, 1,764 million tons of fodder would be needed. As of now, only 900 million tons of fodder is what is available. So जो आपको लगने वाला है in just 3 years from now is almost double the amount of what is available as of now. And you just don't have any idea. Only 4% of the total cultivable land in India is used for fodder production. So you've got to be worried about this, because this figure has stayed constant for the last 40 years. So guys, 40 साल से the total amount of land in India which has been available for fodder cultivation, the central piece of cattle rearing, because that is the feed that cattle feed themselves on, is only 4%. Whereas in those 40 years, if you imagine the amount of cattle that you have moved away from, so if you look at the figures in the 1970s का cattle का census, कि आपके पास कितना cattle था और आज की तारीख में आपके पास कितना cattle है, this is amazing. And there was no green revolution as far as fodder production is concerned. So fodder production की केस में आपने कोई ऐसा foreign varieties लाके the amount of fodder that you are growing that has increased? No, that has definitely not increased. The amount of land has stayed constant for 40 years, though the number of cattle has almost doubled. And this problem is going to keep on increasing, and no one has an answer to this. कि अगर मारना नहीं है, अगर नया इन्वेस्टमेंट नहीं करना है, तो exactly, और आप जमीन दे तो नहीं रहे हो for this purpose that it needs to be fed, तो exactly करेगा कैसे इसको feed? What do you feed it? For example, let me tell you, I don't know how many of you have any idea about it. In most Western cases, animal feed is mostly recycled animal bones and flesh and everything put together. So if you look at, say for example, Western dairy farms, they do have adequate facilities for forage and pastures and all of that. But in addition to it, especially in cases कि जिधर उसको in-house आप ये कर रहे हो, feed कर रहे हो, विंटर मंथ्स में आप उसको बाहर नहीं छोड़ सकते हो, क्योंकि विंटर मंथ्स में कुछ है ही नहीं. तो आप जब उसको इन हाउस फीड कर रहे हो, तो मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम जो एनिमल फीड होता है, जो आप उसको खिला रहे हो, तो इट इंक्लूड्स अ सब्सटैंटिव पार्ट ऑफ द ऑलरेडी स्लॉटेड एनिमल्स इन ड्राइड डेसिकेटेड फॉर्मेट व्हिच हैज बीन मिक्स्ड अप विद सो मेनी अदर सप्लीमेंट्स एंड सो मेनी अदर थिंग्स, एंड दैट इज व्हाट देयर कैटल गो अबाउट ईटिंग. ओके, one of the reasons why possibly most Indians don't want to consume milk coming from cattle that have been reared abroad, कि उसका शायद एक वजह ये भी हो सकता है, पण आय डोंट थिंक सो. कारण आपल्याला तेवढं सगळं कळतं, मला नाही वाटत आपल्याला तेवढं सगळं कळतं. आपण फार बिंडोक लोक आहे, असं जाऊ, त्याचा काय फार मुद्दा नाही. सो आय डोंट नो, पण आणि त्यांना तसं काही वाटत नाही. म्हणजे त्यांना असं नाही वाटत की बाबा आपण अशा पद्धतीने एका गाईला एक मेलेली गाय चारत आहोत, तो ह्याच्यामध्ये काहीतरी प्रॉब्लेम आहे. तो त्यांच्या इमॅजिनेशन मध्ये त्यांच्या गाईच्या पोटात काही नसतं other than the food that has been fed and the dung that is getting created. त्याच्यामुळे they don't have this sort of a crisis with it. At the end of the day, it is economizing on every single available resource. म्हणजे a dead animal that has now been used for practically every single thing. It's only the bones and everything that will now have to be discarded. पण ते डिस्कार्ड कुठं करणार? व्हॉट आर गोइंग टू डू विथ इट? So it's much better that you desiccate it, you dehydrate it, you crumble it, you mix it up with so many other things, and you feed it to the cattle. आता तिला काय कळते? प्लास्टिक खाते, तिला काय कळते? काय खाते? आता काय नसतं. ट्रम्पचं वय 71 आहे. 71. You have looked at him. अख्खी जिंदगी बाबांनी दिवसभर लंच मध्ये एक बीफ बर्गर खाल्लेला आहे. अख्खी जिंदगी. फ्रॉम दी स्पेसिफिक रेस्टोरेंट्स इन न्यूयॉर्क वेर इट इज ऑर्डर्ड फ्रॉम, दे टेस्ट व्हेरी स्टुपिड. आई डोंट नो, दैट्स पॉसिबली वन ऑफ द रीजन्स व्हाई स्टुपिड. पण एकदम एकदम रोज उठून बीफ बर्गर खायचा, रोज उठून. आणि तो जिंकल्याच्या नंतर इथं आम्ही कानपूरमध्ये यज्ञ केलं होतं, त्याचा फोटो बिटो लावून. म्हटलं तो बीफ खातो, तो रोज बीफ खातो, तो एक 12ला खातो, एक 4ला खातो. तुझा फोटो कसा लावत फिरतो तिथं? फोटो टिळक बिळक यज्ञ बिज्ञ, त्याला ते खाल्ल्यावरती पेडा बिडा खाऊ बावट बिवट काय. अशी मज्जा आहे. अशा पद्धतीने आपण एकंदरीत फारच मूर्ख आहोत. याचा अजून एक अध्याय संपलेला येते काय लक्षात? असो, जाऊ दे. पण बिफोर आय गो टू दॅट क्वेश्चन विच इज लाईक व्हेरी टेम्पटिंग बिकॉज दॅट इज समथिंग दॅट आय रियली वॉन्ट टू ॲड्रेस. बोलो, क्वेश्चन्स, इश्यूज, एनीथिंग दॅट इज रिलेटेड टू दिस एंटायर थिंग. So A, as I said, it is extremely important in 2017 to talk about it because 1/4 of your agricultural GDP is now coming out of it. B, you have a whole range of maintenance problems in terms of availability of fodder, in terms of availability of extension services, everything. Jaisa everything with the revolutionary government, big intentions on specific aspects of policy with zero grants, practically zero grants to match up with those intentions. म्हणजे 100 स्मार्ट सिटीज, पैसे कुठे आहेत? तो आता तो उपराष्ट्रपती झाला, त्याच्यामुळे आता सोडूनच द्या. 100 स्मार्ट सिटीजला पैसे किती घेऊन आले तर तुम्ही विचार करा. आर यू गेटिंग इट? सो जैसा उधर है ना वैसे ही इधर ही है. बिग पॉलिसी अनाउंसमेंट्स, बिग पॉलिसी इंटेंशन, मैचिंग ग्रांट्स किधर है? वेयर द ग्रांट्स टू मैच ऑल ऑफ दिस? देयर इज नो मनी इन इट. Who is going to do this then? हर चीज का प्रॉब्लम है. अच्छा, लाइफस्टाइल चेंज हुआ है तो आपका डिमांड बदल गया है. As I said, everyone wants to now drink milk. You don't understand all of this. You actually, I think there's a Menka Gandhi article, but I'm not very sure वो exactly कहाँ पे available होगा, wherein she cautions you about these practices of India's dairy farmers and the use of chemicals as far as dairy farming is concerned. Menka Gandhi is strictly opposed to it. She has always, throughout her life, been opposed to it. Varun Gandhi was brought up not on cattle milk, always on almond milk. उसको ताज जिंदगी मैडम ने almond milk पिलाया है, उसको कभी cattle milk नहीं पिलाया. मैडम के घर में there is nothing that comes from cattle or animals. Zero, nothing, no product which is sourced from animals or cattle. And she's a part of this government. Lives with this sort of stupid policy. I don't know whether she understands this or not, but that she is in a different department altogether, so she's not supposed to have any perspective on this. So bolo, questions, comments, everything. Now that is open. Before I go to that communalism wala issue, anything that needs to be talked about, anything that needs to be focused on. Minimum एवढं तरी कळलं ना की गायच्या पोटात काहीही नसतं. ती खाते ते गवत, न मिळालं तर प्लास्टिक आणि शेण, ह्याच्या पलीकडे काहीही नाही. छत्तीसगड 200 गाई मेल्या ना, छत्तीसगड. काऊ शेल्टर्स इज पार्ट ऑफ अ ह्यूज इकॉनॉमी थ्रू आउट द कंट्री. आणि हे पण मी तुम्हाला मागेच सांगितलेलं आहे, काऊ शेल्टर्स चलाए इसीलिए जाते हैं but what happens is you have large heads of cattle, large. I mean, at any point of time you have something like 2,000-3,000 heads of cattle. Acha, cow shelters are, if you are well connected, extremely well subsidized. So आपको जमीन मिलता है, आपको कुछ भी नहीं करना पड़ता है. I don't know how many times you have gone to shops run by Gujaratis and Marwadis to find on the shop counter there's a small donation box कि जिसमें आप पैसा डाल सकते हो क्योंकि ये पैसा जाने वाला है टू सम काउ सेंटर समवेयर और दिया दो. हाँ, सो काउ सेंटर को चलाने के लिए जेब से कुछ भी नहीं डालना है. सरकार सब्सिडाइज जमीन दे रही है. अगर उसमें वाटर बॉडी नहीं है तो वाटर टैंकर्स कैन बी ऑर्डर्ड एट सब्सिडाइज रेट्स. फॉर्डर हैज टू बी ऑर्गेनाइज फॉर, पर उसके लिए आपको सारी दुनिया से डोनेशन मिलता है. यू हैव दिस वेरी स्टूपिड रिलीजियसिटी वाला आइडिया इन इंडिया विच सेज दैट नहीं नहीं अच्छा है, जाने दो, हम तो कुछ कर नहीं सकते, कोई और कर रहा है तो चलो उसके लिए पैसा दे देते हैं. एंड देन व्हाट यू डू इज यू हैव दीज लार्ज हेड्स ऑफ कैटल. सो 4000 गाय हैं, 5000 गाय हैं. अब उसमें से कुछ गायें ऐसी है कि जिनका आप डेफिनेटली मिल्किंग के लिए इस्तेमाल कर सकते हो. सो यू कीप ऑन मिल्किंग देम. ओके, एंड देन देयर आर काउज विच जस्ट नीड टू बी फेड. तो ऑफ कोर्स वो भी एक मैमल है. एट द एंड ऑफ द डे, एट सम पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम और द अदर, शी इज गोइंग टू बी इन दैट नेचुरल साइकिल वेयर शी इज गोइंग टू डाई. द काउ सेंटर स्टार्ट्स मेकिंग मनी एट द पॉइंट एट विच द काउ डाइज. इज क्लोज टू डेथ. अगर मेरे पास ऑलरेडी 4 या 5000 गायें हैं जिसमें से बाय बैचेस आई एम सेलिंग ऑफ समथिंग लाइक 40 or 50 cows फॉर फर्दर प्रोसेसिंग एंड एक्टिविटीज, हाउ डज समबडी आउटसाइड रियलाइज कि मेरे 2000 गाय से 40 गई है? सो गाय का आते रहना एक सर्कुलर साइकिल में चलते रहता है जो कंटिन्यूअस है, और गायों का डिस्पोज ऑफ करते रहना भी एक सर्कुलर साइकिल में चलते रहता है जो भी एक साइकिल है. And nobody realizes this. If you have a cow shelter which you have been running for, say for example 25 years से चल रहे हो, 30 years से चल रहे हो, गाय मरने के बाद किधर गई आपकी? Where are the cows which are dead? What are you doing with the dead cows? You're burying them, you're burning them, you're already selling them off even before they are dead. And हे जे पॉइंट्स इतना, वेस्ट बंगाल, केरला, गोवा, South India, there has been since 2014 a sudden increase in beef exports from South Indian ports, from the ports in Kerala, from the ports in Tamil Nadu, and from the ports in Andhra. Acha, what is very puzzling is the beef which is going over to these ports is traveling from places as far away as Haryana and Uttar Pradesh. तो हरियाणा से अगर आप ट्रक लेके जा रहे हो तो आप केरला क्यों जा रहे हो? इट्स मच इजियर टू गो टू पोर्ट्स इन गुजरात और इन महाराष्ट्र, but you're going all the way to Kerala because what you're doing is the animal is being slaughtered off in Kerala. So the South Indian ports which are suddenly now showing you this strange phenomena post 2014 कि जिनका बीफ एक्सपोर्ट्स का प्री 2014 का रिकॉर्ड बहुत ही लो है in terms of both volume and value. They suddenly have more volume and value being transacted in the South Indian ports for a simple reason, because it's the only state where it can be done. So Tamil Nadu doesn't let you kill a cow, but Tamil Nadu definitely lets you kill a bull. Andhra doesn't let you kill a cow, but Andhra definitely lets you kill a bull. And Kerala lets you kill both bull as well as cow, no problems at all. So it's very funny. So वो वाला जो केस है ना, वो छत्तीसगढ़ का केस था. And this is increasingly happening with a lot of these people all over the place. They are not able to keep it up for a simple reason, because अभी आपका जो ट्रांजैक्शन का रूट है ना वो थोड़ा लंबा हो चुका है. जो पहले प्री 2014 का कंडीशन था कि जिधर आप छत्तीसगढ़ से उसको आंध्रा में बेच सकते थे, तो दैट सॉर्ट ऑफ हैज स्टॉप्ड. सो नाउ सडनली योर रूट्स हैव स्टार्टेड बिकमिंग लॉन्गर वंस. So suddenly you have these cow shelters which are now getting burdened with more animals that need to be cared for. Obviously जो भी आपका मेंटेनेंस है वो शॉर्ट है. ऑफ कोर्स वो छत्तीसगढ़ का केस आउट एंड आउट करप्शन का केस था. He has obtained all the money from the government, and most of the time, as the villagers said, he has hardly spent any money in the shelter. So 2 साल में 65 lakhs के आसपास पैसा उसने गवर्नमेंट से उठाया है for feed and fodder, whereas most of those 200 cows died of starvation. 2 साल में 65 लाख उठाया है. तो जो गाय मरी है वो मरी इसीलिए है बिकॉज दे डिड नॉट हैव एडिक्वेट फूड एंड फीड. सो इट्स अ वेरी स्ट्रेंज सॉर्ट ऑफ सिचुएशन, बट दिस इज गोइंग टू हैपन. दिस इज इंक्रीजिंगली गोइंग टू कीप ऑन हैपनिंग. as there are so many people, as I've time and again pointed out, milking in India is more cruel to the animal as compared to meat. As compared to obtaining meat from the animal, which is done across the world, उससे ज़्यादा cruel milking है, क्योंकि आप उसको मरने ही नहीं दे रहे हो और आप उसको चैन से जीने भी नहीं दे रहे हो. In the meat countries of the world, where you are already sorted out, कि देखो, I want veal out of this and I want beef out of this. So you let it feed, you let it do whatever it wants to do, it can live its natural cycle. तो जहाँ आपका मिल्क वाला ऑब्सेशन है ना, you time and again keep on inseminating it, you time and again keep on injecting all these chemicals into it, you time and again वो उसको बच्चा दिखाने का, फिर लेके जाने का, फिर सारा दूध लेके जाने का. So from the animal's point of view, milking in a country like India, especially, and the farmers who are doing it have a genuine reason to do it, for a simple reason, because there's a demand for it. So we are fulfilling a demand. But in that entire process, milking is much more cruel to the animal, much more cruel. उससे तो अच्छा आप एक झटके में उसको खत्म कर दो, get your produce, get done. पर आप वो नहीं कर रहे हो, आप उसको ऑलमोस्ट हर दिन मार रहे हो, हर दिन. And it's terrible, it's simply terrible. Looking at the amount of milk that you get in this country, that is not the natural way in which cows normally operate. And especially most of this गए 3 साल का वो भी और एक किस्सा जो है, वो पूरा आयुर्वेद वाला जो एम्फेसिस है, कि जिसमें cow milk and cow products made from cow milk are sort of more valued and glamorized as compared to the buffalo milk thing, has actually resulted in a situation which is much more cruel to the cow. The reason why I would normally advise people whenever I do talk about this, you please take a look at that lovely thing called as plastic cow. The Indian apathy towards the cow is simply phenomenal, unbelievable. And I'm not the first person to talk about it. Gandhi has talked about this in abundance in the 1930s. Abundance. वो हरिजन में detailed articles है कि इंडियन सेंटिमेंटलिटी और वो रिलीजियोसिटी वाला जो सेंस है, वो एक्चुअली उस जानवर के लिए कितना खतरनाक और कितना बुरा है. And we just don't understand this. So I don't know. So those types of cruel incidences are going to keep on increasing.
Is there any anti-slaughter law in UP?
Obviously there is. Anti-slaughter मतलब anti-cow slaughter. Anti-cow slaughter तो बहुत पहले से था. अभी तो anti-bull slaughter है. खाली buffalo is exempted throughout the country. And अभी तो it has become much more critical, because the minute he came to power, he constituted these teams across the state when the police was supposed to clamp down on what are called as the illegal abattoirs. So ये जो illegal slaughter houses है, अब प्रॉब्लम ये है कि स्लॉटर हाउस को लीगल करने के लिए गवर्नमेंट ने जो प्रोविजन करना चाहिए, उसके लिए गवर्नमेंट का जो लेआउट होना चाहिए, आपने जो पैसा उसमें डालना चाहिए, वो तो आप डाल नहीं रहे हो. तो दिस इज आउट एंड दिस इज समथिंग दैट एवरीबॉडी नोज अक्रॉस द कंट्री कि हंड्रेड्स जितने लाइसेंस स्लॉटर हाउसेस जो इंडिया में है ना, वो मुश्किल से 2000 है, मुश्किल से. एंड इफ यू लुक एट द अमाउंट ऑफ बीफ विच इज गेटिंग क्रिएटेड, it cannot be a function of just 2000 slaughterhouses. So it's obvious that a lot of slaughter which is happening illegally. पर उसमें प्रॉब्लम क्या है? मेरा कहना वही तो है ना, मतलब if you can keep on bringing tax amnesty schemes so that people who have not paid taxes are supposed to pay taxes, that's the way in which India operates. Builders build illegally. After a point of time, local municipal authorities legalize illegal structures. वो इलीगल है, आप उसको लीगल लाइसेंस दे दो. सो काउ स्लॉटर बहुत पहले से है, एंड अभी जो हरकत शुरू हो चुका है वो इज टू क्लैम्प डाउन ऑन एवरी सिंगल स्मॉल थिंग. योगी चीफ मिनिस्टर बना ना, उसके बाद वाले महीने में द उत्तर प्रदेश का मैरिज एंड वेडिंग्स का साइकिल बिगिंस. एंड इन प्लेसेस बोथ इन ईस्टर्न एज वेल एज इन वेस्टर्न उत्तर प्रदेश, you suddenly had a problem as far as Muslim households were concerned, wherein marriages either had to be postponed or cancelled because the bride's family was not able to give a feast involving beef. तो जब शादी तय हुआ था तो उस वक्त जो खाना तय किया गया था उसमें आपने कहा था कि आप बीफ का पार्टी दोगे। अब सडनली आपका कहना ये है कि हम बीफ अरेंज ही नहीं कर सकते हैं। तो देन सडनली यू हैड आइदर मैरिज हैज बीन पोस्टपोन्ड, मैरिज हैज बीन कैंसल्ड, मैरिज हैज बीन शेल्फ्ड, सेइंग नहीं ठीक है अब देखना पड़ेगा कि क्या गवर्नमेंट का एटीट्यूड है। तो इतना खराब कंडीशन है कि आपकी शादी में आप लोगों को ढंग से खिला भी नहीं सकते हो बिकॉज यू फियर दैट द गवर्नमेंट इज वॉचिंग ओवर व्हाट आर यू ईटिंग। जिंदगी में एक बार इंसान करता है, उसके ऊपर भी आप ऊपर से देख रहे हो क्या खा रहे हैं। हो बीफ सगळ्यात महत्वाचं प्रोटीनचं सोर्स इन द सेन्स दॅट बीफ सगळ्यात चीप प्रोटीनचं सोर्स आहे। म्हणजे तुम्ही जर 1 किलो बीफ याचं कंपॅरिझन विथ अदर प्रोटीन सोर्सेस केलं की बाबा 1 किलो बीफ विथ 1 किलो मटकी, 1 किलो तूर डाळ, तर मग यू वुड इमिजिएटली रियलाइज की प्राइस वाइज दिस इज मोर कॉम्पिटिटिव एज कंपेयर टू एनीथिंग एल्स। So that's what I'm saying. In all the parts of this country, वो जो 80 मिलियन लोग जिनके बात हम कर रहे हैं ना, वो 80 मिलियन लोग उसको प्रेफर ही इसलिए करते हैं क्योंकि वो बहुत कॉस्ट इफेक्टिव है, बहुत कॉस्ट इफेक्टिव है, बहुत ज्यादा न्यूट्रिशियस है। इट कैन बी इट्स डेफिनेटली नॉट ऑफ द वेस्टर्न वैरायटी जिसमें यू आर अफ्रेड ऑफ समथिंग लाइक फुट एंड माउथ डिजीज एंड समथिंग लाइक दैट। So हमारा cooking habits are such that we would always see to it that it turns out to be something that is extremely nutritious and nourishing. तो वो तो हुआ है, but their point is कि like, but this came in 2015. Fadnavis literally went to the point of saying that no, but people should think of other sources of beef, other sources of protein. I think it was Chandrakant Patil and Sudhir Mungantiwar who were left holding the bowl in their hand by saying that. No, we have banned bull meat, but buffalo meat is yet available. So Maharashtra is not exactly speaking banned all types of beef. So जो हो हल्ला हमारे बारे में किया जा रहा है, अब प्रॉब्लम क्या हुआ है कि महाराष्ट्र गवर्नमेंट का ये जो पूरा नॉनसेंस लॉ है ना, दिस हैज बीन चैलेंज्ड इन द सुप्रीम कोर्ट एंड द सुप्रीम कोर्ट हैज येट नॉट टेकन अप दिस केस। इट एक्चुअली नीड्स टू टेक अप दिस केस क्योंकि सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने का एक जो पुराना रूलिंग है, आई थिंक 97 या 98 का है, जो गुजरात से आता है, विच इज कॉल्ड एज द कुरैशी केस, वो एक्चुअली बहुत ज्यादा प्रॉब्लमेटिक रूलिंग है। दिस वाज डिलीवर्ड व्हेन जस्टिस लाहौटी वाज द चीफ जस्टिस ऑफ इंडिया एंड दैट रूलिंग एक्चुअली नीड्स टू बी अपटर्न्ड। इट्स अ वेरी वेरी बैड रूलिंग बोथ इन लॉ एज वेल एज प्रेसिडेंट एज समथिंग एज प्रैक्टिकली एवरीथिंग। सो दिस हैज बीन चैलेंज्ड बट दिस हैज येट नॉट कम बिफोर द कोर्ट। तो ये लोगों ने क्या बोला, इन लोगों ने जस्टिफाई किया ये कहते हुए कि देखिए महाराष्ट्र में हमने खाली बुल बैन किया है, पर मटन अवेलेबल है, चिकन अवेलेबल है, और आपको अगर इतना ही बीफ खाने का शौक है तो बफेलो मीट अवेलेबल है, एंड दैट इज नॉट समथिंग दैट वी हैव बैंड। दे वर वेरी एम्फैटिक ऑन दिस दैट वी हैव नॉट बैंड दैट, बट देन प्रैक्टिकली ऑल दीज अदर थिंग्स स्पेशली मटन एंड चिकन व्हेन यू कंपेयर इट विद बीफ आर वेरी कॉस्टली, अनबिलीवेबली कॉस्टली। सो बीफ इज नॉर्मली प्रेफर्ड सिंपली बिकॉज इट्स अ चीप सोर्स ऑफ प्रोटीन, एंड जितना आप कंपेरेबल प्रोटीन बीफ से डिराइव करोगे उतना प्रोटीन डिराइव करने के लिए शायद चिकन या मटन आपको ज्यादा खाना पड़ेगा। So that's the reason why it was normally preferred. B, in a number of cases, as time and again it has been argued both in the Bombay High Court and it would subsequently be even in the Supreme Court of India, I can't change my food habits because food is not, it's not a matter of what is available, it's also a matter of taste. I've cultivated a certain type of taste. I'm used to it. तो ये आप अचानक से ये कहोगे कि नहीं ये नहीं खाना है, वो नहीं खाना है। मैंने तो कहा कल आपको ये भी मेरे को बोलोगे कि नहीं इसमें आपने प्याज नहीं डालना है, तो आई तो हैव दैट एक्सट्रीम प्रॉब्लम कि आज इफ आई लेट यू गो अवे विद दिस कि नहीं आपने बीफ नहीं खाना है, टुमारो यू विल डिक्टेट टू मी कि इसमें प्याज कितना डालना है, प्याज नहीं डालना है, इसमें आलू डालना है तो कितना डालना है, नहीं डालना है तो कितना नहीं डालना। हु आर यू टू टेल मी दैट? At the end of the day, that is a more important question. Government cannot control and government has no right to go about telling people as to what is it that they should eat and not eat. From a larger perspective, health और hygiene के लिए जो आपको maintain करना है आप उसको maintain कीजिए, पर वो तो आपको हर चीज में maintain करना पड़ता है। मतलब आपने कुंभ मेला अगर organize किया तो उसके लिए भी आप public health और hygiene के लिए responsible हो। It's as simple as that. So to say that no, we are not going to deal with this, I think it's horrible. It's simply horrible. So आणि as far as the leather part is concerned, the leatherच्या बाबतीत त्यांनी सांगताना असं सांगितलं की we are trying to promote the availability of alternative leathers. म्हणजे अशा प्रकारच्या हाईट्स की ज्या कॅटल मधनं सोर्स नाही झालेल्या, पण त्याच्यावरती टँजिबल एफर्ट म्हणून जर म्हणशील ना की बाबा त्यांनी काहीतरी प्रत्यक्ष त्याच्यावर काम केलं का, तर त्याचं उत्तर नाही असेल. त्यांनी फक्त म्हटलं की हे करणं गरजेचं आहे. महाराष्ट्र हॅड अ स्पेसिफिक प्रॉब्लेम, कारण महाराष्ट्र इज अ मेजर सेंटर ऑफ बोथ हाईट्स अँड लेदर. इफ यू ट्रॅव्हल टू अ लॉट, कोल्हापूर इज वन सेंटर, ठाणा, नवी मुंबई आर द अदर बिग सेंटर्स ऑफ द प्रोडक्शन ऑफ अ ह्यूज नंबर ऑफ लेदर प्रोडक्ट्स. आणि they have done, just give me 2 minutes I'll finish it off. And in that case they have made no provisions for it. No, all that they said is this needs to be done. What you need to do is artificial leather, alternative leathers is what you need to move into. But this is not easy for people who have spent their entire lives working with a certain type of leather. So you'll have to subsidize it, you'll have to make provisions for it. Nothing has been done on that front. 2 years, 2 साल गुजर गए, आज तक कुछ नहीं हुआ है, आज तक. So I don't know. So I think I'll stop with this because there are people waiting outside. Thank you. Have a great weekend.